Welcome to On Target Radio, Segment 6, where just because a show ends doesn't mean the conversation stops. Now here's your hosts, David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz.
Hi, welcome to Segment 6. Today we're going to talk about taking down the Confederate flag, or what I call white outing history. The interesting thing about this is, and you just said this before we started the cameras, the Civil War, to the Northerners, we called it the Civil War. But when I was teaching in Louisiana, a good friend of mine was a historian, a professor, historian of that. They referred to it as the War of Northern Aggression. And it was always a war not about slavery to them, it was a war about states' rights. That was the big thing. And it's been subverted. I mean, people have twisted into things. Lincoln did not free all the slaves. Lincoln freed the Southern slaves, the Emancipation Proclamation. The Northerners who had slaves were unaffected by that. So it really wasn't about slavery, but they've turned it into meaning that. I think everybody sitting around this table pretty much is a states' rights person. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
I think we all, yeah. So that's really what it was about.
Yeah, Brian just said it a moment ago, you know, that if we haven't learned from that history of respecting states' rights, and that's why the 10th Amendment was added, and it's a big issue, especially in the South, in Texas. I mean, Texas, they're huge on the 10th Amendment, and you know, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so it's like, okay, like the Supreme Court ruling this week about gay marriage, they just said we take away all states' rights with regard to whether you respect gay marriage or not. And I think it's a shame from a states' rights perspective, because then now I can't go to a state like Oklahoma or Texas where they're going to go, yeah, we don't really do that here. You know, I can't make that choice now to live in a place where gay marriage is not acceptable.
Well, the biggest issue I have with it is they just started a very, very slippery slope. Because first, I mean, gay marriage, yes, it's been a controversial issue for I don't know how long, but where does it end? I mean, this isn't just about gay marriage. I mean, what happens when they start doing blanket gun control laws? What happens when they start doing censorship? I mean, this is kind of something we touched on before we even started the camera, is you are under the notion that you can say or do whatever you want in this country, but given light of recent circumstances, we know that's not true, because the moment you're pro-gun, pro-life, conservative, anything, Catholic, I mean, you don't even need to be religious or any other religion. You need to be Catholic, but you can't say what you want. Because the moment you express your own opinion, which is what this whole country was based on, you're wrong. And is the government going to start amping this up? And I mean, creating boogeymen. But
Well, look at what they did. They told the public, oh, the Patriot Act. What is he doing? The Patriot Act forbids wiretapping, listening in a conversation. It's illegal. You can't do that. It's illegal. We have to do away with the Patriot Act. So what did they replace it with?
Freedom Act.
The Freedom Act, which makes it legal to wiretap. I mean, that's how this government solves its problem. Oh, it's illegal? Oh, okay, let's make it legal.
Let's fix that.
Yeah, we'll fix that one real quick. They transferred the actual wiretapping over to the phone companies, but they have open access. So, you know what I see that as? A cost-cutting measure.
Right.
That's what they did. They just shifted the burden of cost to somebody else.
All they did was say, well, we're not going to maintain those servers anymore. We need you all to maintain those servers for us.
Exactly. Now, the thing that bothers me about this, because I've been in the South a number of times, and I taught at Louisiana Tech in Ruston, Louisiana, and I very much like living in the South. I like the people, I like the place. What's happened is the race baiters, the Jesse Jacksons and the Al Sharptons, are selling people, particularly inner city minorities, on these things that they just make up. And a good example is the Confederate flag. That flag that has become so unloved,
infamous.
yeah, it's not a flag of the Confederate States of America. It's a battle flag. It was a flag that was created and carried into battle.
General Lee, I believe.
General Lee, yeah, I
So
think it was General Lee.
So it was just that section of the Confederate.
Right.
Hence why it was on the South Carolina flag. I mean, that's
That's
Now,
where he was
right.
from.
The important,
Yeah,
the
keep going.
important takeaway from this is, it was the rebel flag, okay? Rebel. The key word here is rebel. They were rebellious against the United States over states' rights. This has nothing to do with slavery. And I'm not saying that slavery wasn't a component of that war, it was. But the real issue at hand, certainly in the minds of Southerners, was their right to govern themselves, not a federal government coming in and telling them what to do, i.e. the Yankees. That's really what it was about, and that's why that rebel flag was carried in battle. It had nothing to do with slavery. If you want to take down a flag, it would be the Confederate flag, which nobody knows what it looks like.
which is what they call stars and bars. It's a circle with a red, white, and a red
Right.
bar.
Yeah, just
And I bet you
three
not one in
stripes.
1,000 people could identify it.
No.
That's the real Confederate flag. Now, they're going around, nothing says maturity like going around and defacing stuff.
Right.
And they're running around
That's
defacing
always the solution.
statues. Yes, exactly.
That's what people do. They don't get their way. They stomp on stuff and whine and, you know.
They pull it down, they
They throw a
destroy it.
tantrum like a toddler.
Yeah, I mean, it's ISIS. These people who are doing this are like ISIS. Have you seen the videos of, they go into museums, they take antiquities, things that are thousands of years old, and destroy them. They sledgehammer them. These people are like roaches. I just find it hard to believe that they're letting them get away with this stuff. And that's what this is. Now, here's the interesting thing. This article, which I found very, very interesting, makes an interesting point. You know who started the Ku Klux Klan?
The
Democrats.
The Democratic Party. Yeah, that's sort of something
The
that doesn't
Southern-
come out a lot in
The
conversation
Southern Democrats.
in the inner
yeah.
city. You know, they sort of forget that. This article makes an interesting point. It goes, you want to erase the symbols of slavery? Get rid of the Democratic Party.
Let's do it.
I'm all for that. You know, it was the Democrats that fought any equality for blacks. They tried to block any legislation. It was a Republican Congress that passed civil rights laws.
Yeah, it was the Southern Democrats, the Southern white Democrats that wanted to perpetuate segregation.
Exactly, Jim Crow laws. And, you know, it was Southern Democrats that really hung on to black people cannot own firearms. It was literally
Yeah.
Southern Democrats that did that. All that knowledge is like lost. That Republicans are painted with all Republicans and all that.
Yeah.
We
the
had the bill
interest-
passed.
The interesting thing is there have been a couple of very well-known black celebrities who've come out and said, listen, you know, all the black people that I grew up with in the South have guns and they don't kill each other. So, you know, clearly the problem is not black people owning guns, you know, and they've pointed that out, you know, very, very famous people. And it's so true. It's like, okay, it's clearly not that issue. It's not the ownership of guns. It's, you know, it's the welfare system. It's societal problems that happen in urban areas.
It is. And what makes this so ludicrous is it's always the fault of Republicans. It's Republicans are responsible for all of it. Yet you look at the worst cities in this country, like Detroit or Baltimore and New Jersey,
Ferguson and
New
Jersey.
Newark.
Oh.
Look at Newark. Look at any of those cities. They have, for as long as anybody can remember, been under Democratic leadership, more often than not, black Democratic leadership. Detroit, there's hardly a white face in the entire city, and they're going, it's racism. How precisely can that be racism?
Yeah, how could we have managed that exactly?
I did a project in school. I think I told you guys this a little while ago. It was on the state of Texas. And after doing some digging and research, if Texas was its own country, it would have the 18th largest economy in the world.
Is that right?
Yeah. So if you want to see the true test of economic success, and I mean, I don't care what you say, I think Texas is the leader in terms of individual and states' rights. I mean, Texas, you can pretty much do whatever you want. with the exception of a few things. But
I've always liked Texas.
They only just got open carry.
Right.
so-
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about too. I'm like, they just got open carry.
yeah, that's why I said that. But
There's actually a lot of other states have had it for a long time.
if you want to be able to compare who's really battling for who, you just got to look at the countries where the leadership is, countries, the states where there's a majority leadership. I mean,
Sure.
states that are in the green are, for the most part, conservative and Republican states. And then you go look at Michigan, Detroit, same place. You go look at Michigan, Baltimore. They're all broke. They have no money. People are leaving faster than.
You know, we've we've talked to. My mind just blanked. Reverend. The Reverend Dr.
Eric Wallace.
Eric. We've talked to Eric Wallace, a really, really great guy. We've talked to Paul McKinley, who actually did hard time. He was a felon and now is a hardcore Republican. And, you know, when you talk to them, there's no simple answer to this stuff. It's really, really complex stuff. But the one thing that's very, very clear is these guys are race bait, not them, but the Jesse Jacksons and those people are race baiters. They're intentionally doing this. How much money did George Soros pour into? Was it $3 million?
Yeah, I don't remember how much.
I think it was $3 million that
More
George
than
Soros
It was a lot. Yeah.
put into paying people to go to Ferguson, paying people to go to Baltimore, specifically to agitate.
To perpetuate the
and
rioting.
perpetuate the riots, that's right. And to get people of color to do things that they probably knew better to begin with, just because they were there and they were egging them on. Why are these
And
people
to
not
make
in
it-
jail?
And to make it look for the TV cameras, like there were
Like
still,
it's
like weeks and,
groundswell.
right, like weeks and weeks have gone by and they're still protesting.
Right.
Well, those are paid protesters,
Well, and the news media is pretty much in the bag for these guys.
clearly.
You know, they set it up. They do act. You know, you look at Chuck's gun shop. When you see clips of that, you think there's 500 protesters out
Yeah.
there. You know,
They
and
do-
we know John.
They
we
do
know,
tight shots.
Right.
Yeah, we know what it
I've seen
is.
that.
They're lining that shot up so it
Yeah.
looks
Big
that
picture
way.
and the small picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an end to any of this, but here's the thing that of all of this, this is the greatest travesty. Right here. You ready for this? They're taking
Agreed.
they're taking the rebel flag off of the Dukes of Hazzard car,
The General Lee.
the General Lee. That's
Are they
what.
doing that at Volo also? I thought Volo
Are
said,
they seriously?
I thought they said no. I thought Volo said no, that they weren't going to do that.
They
Oh.
probably, I don't think Polo would do it.
Yeah.
Well, they are in fact
But-
taking it off the real car.
Warner Brothers has said they're not gonna manufacture any more
Yeah.
replicas of the General Lee with that on there.
Why? The thing I wonder is, when did it become so spineless?
When we got this president.
It
I think it started happening
before that
before
Yeah, I
too,
think
but
it's been in the process.
whatever happened to the if you don't like it, don't buy it. If you don't like it, don't go near it.
We've seen cases where a single person has stopped an entire group simply because they didn't like it. You look at the appellate court here in Chicago ruled on Friedman versus Highland Park, the assault weapon ban.
Yeah.
No, they didn't rule on it. It was ruled in the lower court. It was appealed. It went to the appellate court, and everybody knew we were going to lose in the appellate court because it tends to be an anti-gun court. They have done some pro-gun stuff, but it tends to be an anti-gun court. So everyone knew that, feeling, okay, we're going to lose it. We'll move on to the Supreme Court. The thought was it would be they take some point of law and convolute it, twist it, and make it fit what they want. But they came out and said the reason was, well, if banning assault weapons makes people feel safer, then that's okay. You can just do away with the Constitution of the United States because
Right.
it makes somebody feel better. That's what's happening.
Yeah. The point I made last week about guns, though, is gun ownership is second to freedom of speech in the Bill of Rights. If that was not meant to be a fundamental part of this country, it would not have been listed second to freedom of speech.
You wouldn't have freedom of
Right.
speech if it weren't for
No.
having the guns.
But going back to what we were talking about, I just can't believe how spineless some people are being. And I think I was talking to you about this when we were out in Waterman. The Ivy Leagues have set up like comfort rooms in case you get triggered. These are supposed to be the elites that are going to be running the country. You
Yes.
gotta be kidding me.
When
I'm getting a little fired up here, but we're gonna be we're raising a bunch of entitled, spineless,
Ninnies.
You're right.
yeah, who think
You're
that the
right.
world should be handed to them in a little golden Tiffany's bag, but
The term
Right, the
collateral damage did not exist in World War II. The whole object in World War II was to beat the living snot out of every person in that city until they finally said, that's enough, we're done, we quit. Which is literally what happened. We bombed the snot out of Dresden, firebombed it. We dropped 2 nuclear bombs in Japan, and finally the people of Japan just goes, we give up. That's the collateral damage. You actually have to get, if you see somebody with a weapon that they're going to use against an American GI, a soldier, Marine, whatever it is, right? You can't just hit the guy. You have to call in and talk to the judge advocate, the lawyer's office, and say, I got a guy down here, and he looks, he's carrying an AK-47 or whatever, and they've got him on camera. Everybody's wearing cameras. Do I have the okay? That's not how you fight a war. You kill everything that moves. You kill them. You kill their families. You kill their dogs. You kill everything that moves until there's nothing left. Or they go, you win. This kind of thing drag on forever. We'll get our guys killed one at a time for forever, just like we did in Vietnam. And it's insanity. Why do we do that? This president is the worst. The one thing you can say about George Bush, not everybody liked everything he did. He had a say. He did.
Right.
I mean, basically, I know somebody that knew George Bush back from the baseball days, and when he in Houston, and John didn't really agree with George Bush's what he was doing in the Middle East. But what he said was this: anybody that thinks Dick Cheney was telling George W. Bush what to do is delusional. George W. Bush is an ideologue. He says exactly what he's going to do, he believes what he's going to do, and he does what he says. And you can like it or not, he doesn't care. There's no finger in the wind with the guy. And, again, the liberals just painted him as being an incompetent idiot, but it just simply wasn't the case.
that's why I like, we can end it in a sec, but that's why I like Carly Fiorina, because she's got balls. I mean, I don't mean to be so blunt, but she's the only person I've seen tip their hat in this ring that's willing to actually stand up, ask the questions that need to be asked, and do what needs to be done. I don't know where she stands in a lot of issues, but she's the only one willing to actually get up and do something. And that's what this country is missing. That's what we need.
Well, it used to be very simple. World War II, for instance, they never had enough ammunition. They never had enough firearms. It was always behind the power curve, and they just made do. You just figure out how to get the job done. Today, people fold.
It's because men were men. And nowadays, if you're a man, you're the outcast.
Exactly.
There's no such thing as men anymore.
Yep.
But
So-
anyways.
Apparently, we have not actually solved any of this, which
I thought
I
Brian
was.
That's what you say every week.
Well, it's
I think
it's
it's
true
Brian's
every
job
week.
for the week to
I
figure
think
out how
you
to
need to come
solve
up with a different, wrap
If
up.
we actually solve something, I'd be happy to use it. Okay, we solved hunger this week.
and
We don't.
compensate.
Yeah, we don't solve it.
I don't think anyone expects you to solve anything, is what I'm trying to say.
You think my expectations are too high?
Yeah, I do.
Oh. Next week, we're going to solve world poverty with more segment 6. Thanks for watching.